All right, so we are going to do some reviewing. You may want to take notes. In fact, I wouldn't say may, you should, because this is a pretty comprehensive review of what you'll need to know for my final. My final is a sample AP exam, but I really want you guys to do well, and so I teach to the test, so whatever. All right, so you will probably want to look at this online, but this includes all of the multiple choice questions as well. Yay! So in global prehistory, you're going to need to know something about the Apollo 11 stones, Stonehenge, and the Jade Kong. Now you guys have been reviewing with the game, and that's going to help you a lot. In Africa, we're looking at the Fong Bairi, the Mukasa memory board, and then Mikisi and Konde. Does anybody remember what any of these are?
Mikisi and Konde.
It's the power one year.
It look awesome. There's like a border like
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this is that mnemonic device.
What's the memory? You tell stories.
This is the Fong, and that is a reliquary.
Okay.
And they would clip it onto a basket that held ashes.
Are the ones that
Yes. All right. So in the Pacific, we're going to have an essay question that has the feather cape, the Ahu'ula. Indigenous Americas, Yaxtlan Lintel 25, structure 20 from structure 23. We already know what that one looks like. The Olmec style mask from Templo Mayor. Now most of these are multiple choice, so don't freak out. The Great Serpent Mound. Any of you remember that one?
Oh,
it was in Ohio. That's right. Then we've got the Transformation Mask. Waka Waka Wakas, yes. Then the Black on Black Ceramic by Maria Martinez and Julia Martinez. And some of you saw some of her work. Didn't you
I saw
see it?
that exactly.
Did
Like,
you?
I saw the black on black ceramic.
Oh,
yeah.
really? Yeah, she made a bunch of them, so I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It definitely was titled black on black ceramic vessel.
Yes. All right. So under the Near East and Egypt, we've got the Standard of Ur. Anybody remember what the Standard of Ur was?
Oh, with the war and the
agriculture.
Yeah, one. And it was like a box, but they thought they put it on a pole, so that's why it's considered a standard. Palette of Narmer. Anybody remember that?
Oh, that was like the one where they put the makeup.
That's the eyeliner one, yeah. But more importantly, commemorates the unification of Egypt, Upper and Lower Egypt.
So it's like the queen, like over slaves or something.
Yes.
Oh, stuff like serpent leopard thing.
What? Yeah. Okay. Then the mortuary chapel of Hatshepsut. Keep in mind, she is not buried there. Okay. And the easiest way I see to remember it is that it's got that huge ramp going up, and then there's that whole long building with the little pillars.
I think it's very server.
I'm sure there's somebody buried there, but okay. Doryphorus Polykletos, you will have an essay on that. And make sure you understand that he wrote the canon as well as carved Doryphorus, which is the physical exemplification or the physical application of his book or canon. Yes.
What do the asterisks indicate?
That you're going to probably have it on an essay. See, I'm really teaching to the test. Aren't you proud of me?
Thank you.
All right. Neobetes crater. Anybody remember that? Gentlemen, Jacob, what do you remember about the Neobetes crater?
I remember it was like a pottery one. Yeah, one porcelain.
Yeah, it's actually black and red pottery.
Oh,
It's,
It had the story of
She was bragging that her case, she was a case in that Apollo killed them for like
yeah.
something like that.
So the Anavisos Koros, archaic Greece. So what's the difference between a Kora and a Koros?
Horse is a
Koros
guy.
is male.
Koros is the male.
And they're not contrapposto, they're very rigid.
They're very rigid because they are archaic.
And they're grave markers, right?
Okay, Apollo from the Temple of Minerva in V. Anybody remember that?
Is that
Etruscan?
It is Etruscan.
Oh, it's
Look,
terracotta.
so good.
Right?
He's terracotta, and he moves in space a lot more than the archaic ones. Apollo, Gigantomachy, great altar of Zeus.
At Pergamon.
What was that?
Relief.
It was on the Parthenon.
Shows-
Bailey, do you have any ideas about that?
For which one?
It shows the fight between the gods and the
What
dragons.
is Well, I was asking her that, but thank you.
Oh,
What does gigantomancy mean?
Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, the gods and the giants. Okay. Alexander mosaic. Colby, tell me about the Alexander mosaic. And you can ask for help. Tesserae is probably more specific than tile because they're really tiny. There's over 1 million of them.
And Alexander's on there.
Okay, so it's a Roman piece, but why is it also Hellenistic? Anybody have any thoughts on that? It's a copy of Hellenistic painting. Okay?
so the Pantheon's a dumb one.
All right. Pantheon, of course, is the largest unreinforced ceramic dome
It's a concrete.
in the world. I've been there. It's wonderful. Then Colosseum, also known as Flavian's Amphitheater. So if, for example, you don't see the word Colosseum, but you do see Flavian's Amphitheater, you know, hopefully will remember Colosseum and Flavian's Amphitheater are the same. Early Rome and colonial Americas. And I am going to be posting these online. So Jess, what's going on?
Oh, I'm very excited for my Spanish class because I think I might be getting a secret Santa gift.
Oh, that is exciting. Let's move on to early Europe. Landesfarne Gospels.
Oh, this is amazing.
The
Are
Landesfarne
those the big, like, wasn't it like the Irish Bible?
interlace. So it was
Yeah.
actually, the Landesfarne is an island on the east coast of England.
Yeah, it was like England.
And there was a monastery there, but they copied and copied and copied, you know, classics among other things. And that gospel has what they call the Iberian Saxon, the interlace, you know, that looks like the Irish knots. Okay. Reliquary of Santa Foy. What can you tell me about it? Let's go ahead and get somebody else. Ryan.
The reliquary center, was that the, that wasn't the, no.
It was a type of spolia.
Was it the building or no? That was it that.
There are several images you needed to know. One of them was a reliquary.
Oh, who's it, Mary?
It was of Santa Foy.
Oh, so it was a.
Santa Foy is a person, a little girl who died for her faith. The monks stole it, at least her bones or remains from somebody else because they needed something to attract pilgrims. So that's really important to remember. Also remember that the Pilgrim Church of Santa Foy is what type of architecture? Romanesque is correct. Don't confuse Santa Foy with Chartres, okay? Notre Dame de la Bella Vieira from Chartres. You will have an essay question on that, and we can practice those, go over those. We talked about that quite recently. Always mention the throne of wisdom when you're talking about that particular Mary. What else can you tell me about Chartres?
It's Gothic.
Nick, what else can you tell me about? Go ahead and close your Chromebooks.
I was actually looking at it. I'm not even joking. I was actually looking at it.
Okay, so what else can you tell me about Chartres?
So
It was also a pilgrimage church, so
yeah, you could say that it was like it depicts Mary and Jesus, and it was like supposed to be a really emotional piece, but it's basically
That's
but
right.
why is it a pilgrimage?
no clue.
Okay, ask for help.
When context.
You guys. What was the relic that they had?
The relic. For which one?
For charts. It's a Gothic
Oh.
cathedral,
Yes.
has Mary on a stained glass window, so you could make a stab at it based on the person that's in that stained glass window.
Mary.
Okay,
Good job.
It has Mary.
Mary's what?
Child.
No. Kind of defeats the whole purpose of the Christian faith.
He's pinned up in the back.
She had a mantle or a cloak. You know, you're gonna remember that if it comes up. And you need to remember it because it is, you do need to make sure that you understand chart when you do this essay question. And you guys have practiced it. It's just been a while. The Rochkin Pieta,
Oh,
Oh, that's
I
one
know
where he's
that one.
gushing blood and
Yes.
of wood.
and it's a very sad one. And so
It's a lamentation.
it is a type of lamentation. Also keep in mind that it's depicting a very different Gothic world than the Gothic world of Belvedere.
It shows the.
It's emotional.
Yeah, and why would they be more emotional in the later Gothic
Because
period?
of the Catholic Church
Because of the
was like, we
bubonic
gotta
plague.
connect to
And
the
100
young
Years of War
kids.
Epidemic.
Oh, that's right.
Right, so the bubonic plague, the 100 Years War, the schism in the church.
Also, isn't like it's like a personal thing that ends actually belief or something like that?
Yeah, on Doxstig Blick or something like that. Anyways, it was used for personal devotions. All right. David did Donatello did a David. Oops, I got confused. And you need to understand the difference between these two. Even though Michelangelo's David is not on our list, you are going to compare it to David that Donatello did. What is the one thing that we can say about David's Donatello?
I got shot.
He has the
No,
poofy
that's
hat.
actually Michelangelo's.
He's got the poofy hat.
He has a foofy hat.
It's bronze.
He's holding a
It's
sword.
bronze.
Contraposto.
He's over the head.
Contrapposto, man, Caleb, you may have been sick, but you're on. You're right on. Okay. Raphael, School of Athens. What can you tell me about that? Let's get Grace Brubaker.
For Raphael.
School of Athens.
Well, that was the one that had like there were like 4 paintings in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the Vatican. Is it in the Vatican?
It's in the personal apartments of the Pope, and it's actually what used to be the library.
Okay, yeah. And then there, I don't remember what the other ones are, but then for this one it had like a ton of famous scholars in the painting.
And they were all relating to the philosophers of Athens.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he was like in the corner, right? Didn't
Yeah, he had a self-portrait in there. All right, so Palazzo Riccielli, Leon Battista Alberti. That is a typical Renaissance building. What you need to know about it is that it has Tuscan pilasters that are very similar to what's on the Colosseum. So we've got either Doric or Tuscan. The next one would be, in order, Ionic, and then the last one will be,
Is that the one from the Medici family?
yeah, it was built for the Medici.
So the Babylon was
What is it?
Yeah, it kind of goes from the simplest to the most complex. All right, Il Gesù Church. What can you tell me about that church?
Life of Jesus.
It basically is for what order?
Isn't it? What's it called? Jesuit?
Jesuits is correct. Now, what a lot of you missed the question that I had for that one, where it says that this was a church for the Franciscans, and that's where you blew it because it's the Jesuits. The Jesuits were very much a part of the Counter-Reformation, and so this is a Counter-Reformation Baroque church. Okay, the Arnolfini portrait.
That was the one with all the symbols.
It had a lot of symbolism in it.
One of the first signatures in like, the Renaissance.
One of the first signatures in the Renaissance. Other thing, keep in mind, if they look like Putin, they're probably a Jan van Eyck.
There's like all that.
They do kind of look
Like in the mirror.
Woman holding a balance, Vermeer. Bellen, what can you tell me about that? Woman holding a balance, Johannes Vermeer.
Yeah. When the light comes in from the left side, it's usually a Vermeer painting.
Are you Bellen? Did you listen, Bellen? Go ahead and say what he said. Okay,
It's
well, we're
Dutch.
holding a balance, Johannes Vermeer. First of all, where is that painting from?
Dutch.
Wherever
Deutschland.
is.
Yes, it is Dutch. What else can you tell me about it? Is it a religious painting?
Kind of. Isn't
Kind
it
of, yeah.
Vanitas? Is that the right word?
Could be a Vanitas,
Well, it's
but
about
she's counting her
morals.
money.
It's about religion versus wealth.
Right, and then there is a judgment scene behind her. The other thing that's cool is pretty much every Vermeer that I've ever seen has got the light coming in from the right of the figure.
The left.
Left of the-
Right of the figure.
Or right of the
left for
figure.
us.
Yeah, if the figure
Mm.
is facing you, then it's gonna be right here. I didn't mean to confuse you, but the light always comes from one side, and there's very nice lights and darks. Okay, the Marie de Medici cycle, Peter Paul Rubens.
The extra one.
That's a weird one.
That was a weird one. And just keep in mind that the one that that is assigned to us is where he's looking at a portrait of her as they go ahead and make the contract for her to marry him.
Oh yeah, with like the Greek gods above.
Yes.
I like floating.
Portrait of Sor Juana Inez de la Cruz. What do we know about,
Oh, she was the cool nun.
she was the nun that was very well educated, and she eventually had to give it up because the church didn't like how outspoken she was. Miguel Cabrera is the artist.
Baseball.
Spaniard and Indian produce a mezzo. What's a mezzo? Anybody know what that is? Jacob, Gavin, do you know?
Wait, can you,
Anybody know?
what is it again?
Mezzo.
Mestizo.
Yes.
Is it like the child of like
Oh god.
like a white like a colonialist and a
So it would be a Spaniard and an
Oh, yeah.
Aztec or an Indian.
Mm.
It's like Ben Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. It was like in the pattern wig, right? It's like-
Yes, he did, but they did have intermarriage, and that's what that is. So remember that painting because it will be on the test. Moving right along. So make sure you know Romanticism. Romanticism. We did not study Garrett Hall, did we? I think we studied Delacroix instead. But he did a painting called The Raft, and I'll show it to you guys. Stonebreakers, Courbet. What can you tell me about Stonebreakers?
Realism.
It's realism. Everything is in the same focus. There's no, emphasis on one and part of the painting over the other. Olympia by Manet. You guys should really understand Olympia by now.
That
That's a dirty painting.
Well, it just was very offensive to the
That
French
was a bad one.
for some very hypocritical reasons. It's actually a beautiful painting. I'm just saying.
No.
It's a good-
I'm saying that
Burgers of Calais.
we didn't.
Remember that? You guys were Ryan.
So I would show you talking about.
Yeah, no, that's fine. What can you tell us about the Burgers of Calais?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, it's somewhat of a narrative.
Oh wait, isn't the statue like the four
It's like
the
actually
leaders, like,
five.
walking to like sacrifice themselves?
Exactly.
Wait, is it the one that was banned?
Huh?
Is the one that was banned? Whatever.
It wasn't banned, but Calais chose not to accept it because they wanted something looking a little more classical and looking a little more noble, and he actually made it quite realistic.
Is that one copper?
Rodin.
Yeah, it was a copper.
It was black though, right?
It's actually bronze. I don't think it's
Oh,
copper.
Yeah, black.
It was like the black.
Okay, Dream of Sunday Afternoon in Alameda Central Park by Rivera. What is the most important thing you need to know about? Well, there's several things. Yes, Caleb.
communism.
It represents like all the figures in like Mexican history, like played equal part.
Yeah, everybody played an equal part, not just the Spaniards, but also the Indians and the various other people who came. What eras of Mexican history does it depict?
Colonial.
Like higher.
The Mexican Revolution.
Yeah, well, you need to be a little more specific than that if you're writing an essay. Okay, so make sure you understand and make sure why it was considered controversial. Because some of you when you did that on your tests, put down that Mexican people loved it. Yeah, no, they didn't because they were Catholic and he had put God does not exist on that particular word. So be sure you understand that. Carson, Peary, Scott and Company building. Yes.
Is this the one in Chicago on the corner and it's like the first metal building?
Yeah, it's the
Steel
first
frame.
steel
frame.
skeleton, steel frame. Excellent. Okay, Falling Water, Frank Lloyd Wright. That one you guys should remember.
That's the building we looked on the first day.
It's me building it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, I hope I can go visit it someday.
I want to live in that house.
Yeah, it would be fun to live there, maybe for a while. Migration of the Negro, panel number 49. Make sure you understand the style involved in that because you may get an attribution multiple choice question on that.
This is the office one, like the line in the middle.
It's the line in the middle and they're actually eating.
Oh, the E.
It's a restaurant, yeah. Okay, The Bay by Helen Frankenthaler. Anybody remember that one at all? It's a poured painting. In other words, she took her canvas and then she poured her acrylic paint and then she tipped it until she got what she
Oh,
wanted.
is that the one that's like the green and then
It's
the
green
blue
and the big
splotch?
blue blob in the middle.
What's it called? Color field painting?
It's-
Color field?
Color field, yeah. So, something to keep in mind. House in Newcastle County by Robert Venturi. You guys were talking about it. One of you guys were playing the game. What type of architecture is that? Postmodern. Don't confuse it with modern. Falling Water is modern. The Seagram building is modern. But the house in Newcastle County is postmodern. Spiral Jetty. Where can you find that?
It's like in the.
It's in Utah.
It's in Utah.
Is
On
this the
this,
one on by the ocean? Like,
no, it's not. Yeah, it's the Big Lake.
no, like, it's like the.
Spiral. Yep.
Yeah, the Great Salt Lake. Okay. Also remember entropy. Most of you know that by now. The Great Mosque of Cordoba. Toby, remember what that looks like. Sometimes the things we forget and have to be reminded ended up sticking better. So that's the mosque. The most likely, image you will see will be the striped horseshoe arches. It is a hypostyle. Excellent. But the pillars that they use, some of them are recycled, so they're spoliate. So that's kind of cool.
The Kaaba.
Kaaba. What do we know about the Kaaba? I'm gonna ask Ivana. Okay, so anybody want to help her out with this?
Isn't it like a pilgrimage?
It is a pilgrimage. Excellent. And it's for Islam. So where would they be going to? What is the most likely place they'll go to for pilgrimage if you're Islamic? Mecca. You'll always want to go to Mecca. Okay.
So the Kaaba is the big black cube.
The Kaaba is the big black cube that you see them circumambulating, and they go in what direction?
Counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise, because Buddhists go in clockwise.
Yeah, I think you did right.
Okay, so the basin, Baptistry de San Luis. What do you guys remember that one?
Oh, yeah, that was the Muslim basin that they made for the king.
Well, it ended up in Europe.
Well, it ended up there, and it has like the crazy pour vacuum and all the little patterns and stuff.
And it's
then it
also
has the
done with
hunting
repose,
scenes.
which means they're hammering the metal from.
It's got like the hunting scenes and also the fighting scenes. And
Yeah, it's great. Then the Pyxis of Al Muhira. That's very similar, but it is made out of ivory. It's used for cosmetics, like lotions or oils. The Court of Gayamars. What is that
Oh, the
part of a
Shamanah.
book of? Shahnameh, yeah. And then the Jangahar preferring a Sufi sheikh to kings. You're going to find a European king on that. You guys remember
James
that?
II.
Huh?
Is it James II of England?
Mhm.
Is that the thing with the little like cupids?
Yes, it does have some, what they call putti or cupids on it. And so you've got Jangahar, who is talking to a Sufi sheikh, whereas there's, various other rulers that he's not talking to. The Mosque of Selim II. The most important thing to know about that is that it's based on what Christian church? Gentlemen, are you guys listening? So what building is the Mosque of Selim II based on?
Isn't that the weird dome thing?
Okay.
Is it based off the Holy Spirit?
Yes, that is correct. Good job. All right, moving on to Asia, the Stupa of Sanchi. What faith, what religion?
Buddhism.
Buddhism.
It contains Buddhist remains, right?
It contains
Ashes.
minuscule amounts of Buddha's remains. Borobudur. What religion is that?
Buddhism.
Buddhism. Where can you find it?
Java.
Indonesia. The David bases. Why are those important?
Because they're examples of really early pottery.
Yeah, but how do we know that they're that early?
Because they're dated.
They're
They have
dated
a
on
date
it.
and everything on
There's
it.
an inscription and date on it. Yes, yes, yes. Great wave.
It's a cool way.
It's a big.
It's
It's
the
the wood
It's one of my
block.
favorites in
It's
the
the wood
whole.
block wave.
And don't forget, it's a wood block. So some people call it a painting. Technically, it's a print. All right,
Gosh.
global contemporary. You will have an essay on the gates by Christo and Jean-Claude. Then El Anatsui, the old man's cloth. How many of you remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, did you, and you said you didn't remember seeing it when you were at,
No, I don't think I
the
saw it.
DeYoung.
But maybe we had to we didn't get to see the whole museum.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't have it at the DeYoung because the DeYoung is,
Oh,
Yeah, right.
there is, it's not that piece, but it's another one of his pieces.
really? They have global contemporary?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, pretty cool. All right, so he made these things that look a little bit like kente cloth, which is a traditional textile from Africa, but he makes it with the bottle caps and the metal labels from liquor. Okay, Basquiat, the horn players. You will probably see something of his work that is not the piece that we're looking at, so it'll be an attribution. So you need to understand. So what is the one thing you can remember about Basquiat that will help you remember if you see something else?
It's like graffiti.
Graffiti artist, exactly. Okay, Schonebar did the swing after Fragonard.
Dutch wax clock.
Yeah, Dutch wax clock is part of it.
Because of the French Revolution.
Yeah, and she actually had the head off.
Yeah.
Okay, Aweiwei, sunflower seeds. You remember that video we watched?
Communism.
100
million.
100 million
Yeah.
porcelain sunflowers.
And they walked on them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Walking around.
And then they had to quit walking on them.
Because it got too dusty from
Right.
porcelain.
Okay, Zaha Hadid did the Max 21st Century National Museum. And that one, don't get her confused with Geary and the one at Bilbao. Yeah, because the one at Geary's has the titanium on it, so it's really shiny.
Deconstructed.
Oh,
And
that's the one that looks like the Delta, right?
yeah, and you're gonna see one that is her work, but it is not the work that we know, so it's another attribution. And then Julie Meretu, Stadia 2. You guys remember that one at
Yeah,
all?
that's the crazy one.
Yeah, it's kind of got a circular lines going through it, and then all these flag-like things.
Constructed myself.
All right, so let's look at some of these pertinent questions. What makes the piece in question important? So when we're talking about prehistory and primitive art, we don't know much about it, right? So what clues can we gain since there are no written language? So that's what makes it interesting. So for example, if you're looking in the cave at Lascaux, what is one piece of evidence that kind of helps you understand why they were able to paint so high? They had evidence of niches where scaffolding would have gone. Okay, the discovery site will give us a clue on objects as well. So for example, the running woman, remember the running woman? So the discovery site had what, over 100,000 petroglyphs? So important to remember that. What materials were used to make this piece? So charcoal is a really good example of product, and what skills were needed to make the artwork. So if we've got the emblem stone, carving.
Is that the anteater?
Yeah, or the marsupial or the embryo or some such thing. It's one of my favorite ones. I love it.
I know, it's so cute.
Okay, but other skills may involve, etching into the stone. It may be carving a sacrum. to make
Oh, yeah,
it.
the sacred.
Oh, the camel is.
The camel
Camel is sacred. Yes. Did you have a question? You're just stretching? I'm not dancing fast enough?
Like a year ago.
Okay.
We're so excited for Candyland.
The Jade Stone!
Big stone boys.
Okay, so remember there's two different types of stone in this. Can you guys remember?
Sarsen and Bluestone.
Sarsen and Bluestone.
Well,
Why is that named Apollo the 11th?
Because a
Because
dude
I just
found
heard
it
on
in
the radio
Apollo
about
11 just went off.
Jade Kong, what does this represent?
Bird.
It
In the sky.
It was
Universe.
it was found in aerial design.
And then don't forget we got some shamanistic,
Yes.
zoomorphic.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that either way.
Now that one.
Okay, these are some pieces that are going to be in Africa. Here's the Fong. This is the one that's a reliquary. So don't confuse this with this. Look at all the things coming out of it. And then, as you said, it looks like they've got Cheerios or Fruit Loops on it. Okay?
Okay, that's what it is.
So understand the idea that most of these, in and of themselves, are not sacred. It is the activity that goes along with it.
What activity was the fun?
It's like a voodoo doll.
The Fong, this is probably the most benign of all of them, as it were. I believe it clips onto a container that holds ashes of
Yeah,
ancestors.
it's on a box. It sits on a box
On
and
box.
guards it, right?
Yeah. Okay. The power in this cake comes from where?
The mana. You chant the ancestors' names while they make it.
That's right.
Spiritual.
So while this is being woven, the person weaving it is chanting ancestry. Okay. And then it's related to the ware's mana, and mana, of course, is their power, spiritual power, but also their position in the tribe. Because there's another example of mana in that one painting by
Nakintati?
Yeah, Tamari Wakanene.
yeah.
Tamara Wakanene.
Okay, so Indigenous Americas. Here we've got the Great Serpent Mound, the Olmec style mask, which is pre-Aztec, but that was found at Templo Mayor.
Bloodletting.
Yes,
Yeah.
actually, bloodletting. Woo!
Big time. Yeah. We're ready. 24, Jacob. Keep walking. Maria Martinez.
Maria Martinez, the black on black.
Black on black.
Yep.
Easy.
Shut up.
All right.
Palette of King Manar, Temple of Hatshepsut.
Yeah, and then we've got the Temple of Hatshepsut and the Great Pyramids of Giza. One difference is that her body is not
She's
buried
not
here.
buried there. King Tut's there.
Well,
No,
King
no,
Tut
no,
is in
King
the
Tut's
Valley of
Valley
the Kings. This is more, I think, the entrance to the Valley of the Kings. What god does the statue of Hatshepsut?
Amun-Re.
Okay, and what temple in Karnak goes to what?
Temple of Amun-Re.
Amun-Re. And it's also the first instance where we see hypostyle.
Exactly. And there's
The
also
hypostyle hall.
Yeah, clerestory. Okay, what is Zep Tepi? Zep Tepi. Think about the Temple of Amun-Re, how it has all of these examples of the swamp or the water, and that during creation, a mound is formed. That is called Zep Tepi. That was their Egyptian idea of creation. And so that is why as you go into the temple at Karnak, that you start going up and you have these pylons and you go in further and further. And so you'll see the night sky in the roof of the hypostyle hall.
Oh, wait. Is this the thing where, like, the higher you are, the closer to heaven you are? Or
I think it's kind of going along that line, but it definitely had to do with creation when out of the swamp or the primordial, whatever, the land rose up. Okay, so you can see the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut. You can see the ramps.
So
And notice the difference between this one and that one. Here you can see what's left of the hypostyle hall. And then, does anybody remember who's buried?
A lot of people.
Ramses?
No,
Gordon Ramsay.
I can't remember. Right now it's just,
Michael Jackson. Tupac.
no, it was,
What's his
That's where he's
The
hiding
young
out.
kid, right?
no, it wasn't.
It wasn't the son of that guy?
No,
Oh, wait.
I'll have
Yeah,
to,
I don't know.
somebody look it up.
Just
Gonna go on a limb, a fair run.
Yes. All right, we know what this is. Yeah, yep, yeah.
The king is higher than the register because he's a god.
So that's what type of scale?
He is.
Oh, hierarchical.
Hierarchical.
And what are these called?
Registers.
Registers. Okay.
It's made with wood and lapis lazuli and shell and like redstone or something.
Okay, and the various materials showed
It's
the scope of their trade. What?
26,000 to 24,000 BC.
Is it 2600 BC?
I think it's probably that. I think I screwed it up.
No, it's 26,000.
Okay, ancient Mediterranean.
Apollo and then
Kuros.
This is the crater.
The Neobites crater.
Gentlemen,
Hey, gentlemen,
if
please.
there is an electronic device that you're both staring at, please put it away
Please.
immediately. So we were talking about this, and Jacob, did you know it, or was it?
We both it was at Eve, actually.
Okay. It was Eddie, actually. Okay, Neobites crater, anonymous, clay, red figure technique with white highlights. Notice the difference in the stance between Apollo and the Koros.
The Apollo one is the trans-
Yes.
Yeah.
So here we've got the ancient Mediterranean again.
Alexander Mosaic.
Where is it found?
Pompeii.
Pompeii and the House of the Fawn.
Yeah, if you read this slide, you'll be able to guess it.
Gone.
Oh,
Oh, there it is.
Okay, so make sure that you understand that there's foreshortening going on, there's modeling going on, modeling meaning that they're trying to make it look three-dimensional. So when you're looking at the face here of that guy, you can see that we've got the lights and the darks in there to show that he's got a nose and it's kind of rounded. So it's quite sophisticated. And then, of course, his poor horses. So, you know, you need to understand enough of that when you get a multiple choice question. Then we've got the three different periods.
Relief sculpture.
What are they? The three different periods.
Classical.
classical,
archaic,
archaic,
classical.
Hellenistic. So it's archaic, classical, and Hellenistic. So anybody remember who the politician was who had the Parthenon built?
Story for
didn't we steal the?
I know that the
story for
Delian
from
League.
The Delian League.
Napoleon.
Okay.
What's the first letter? Go. P.
I have this question. Paul
Yeah.
No.
It was like
Hey, Nick, what's a relief star?
Yeah.
I remember like
Who are the
Who is
architects?
it?
Who are the architects of the Parthenon?
Parthenon, I don't remember.
it's like
That was the question I got
Topicon
yesterday.
and Archyard on
Do you remember the name of the politician? It starts with a P.
All
right.
No.
All right.
And-
All right. Do not confuse this with the Pantheon. A lot of people can get Parthenon confused with Pantheon.
It's with the dome.
It's the dome in Rome.
Oh,
Pericles. Okay.
Pericles.
Pericles. All right, great altar of this in Athena in Pergamum. What period of Greek?
Hellenistic.
And this is a bigger shot of it, so you can see it.
Wow.
Wasn't it Turkey or something? Right, you got the dome in Rome.
What's it? Was it what?
In Turkey?
It isn't. It was in Turkey. It's now in Berlin.
Also funny, right?
Okay, so now there is the Pantheon, but this is looking at the portions before you go into it. The dome in Rome. Exactly. Colosseum. What's the other name for the Colosseum? Aren't you glad you're in this class? We have such good time.
Yeah, we're allowed.
All right, let's take a look at this. Ancient Mediterranean. If you had to write an essay question on this statue, what would you write about?
I feel
all
like
those.
Dude, golden ratio.
Why are there only Roman copies of this statue?
Because the original was bronze and it got melted.
That's all.
Okay.
The original.
Do not ever call anybody in this class stupid. That's my job. And I choose not to do it. All right? Just saying.
You are.
All right, so contrapposto, make sure you understand how it differs from an archaic Greek statue.
He's wiggly.
Contrapposto.
What kind of paint was probably used?
Encaustic.
Encaustic, which is a wax-based paint. All right, early Europe.
Oh, that's Santa Fe Reliquary.
Oh,
France
it's a little
Golden
gold.
Gem.
Oh,
it's her city.
And it was probably a Roman statue, and then they started adding stuff to it, so it can be considered spolia. Gorotkin Pieta?
Mary and Jesus, right? Like,
Yeah, but very much more of a lamentation.
Yeah.
Lindisfarne. So this is probably, you can see the trace, they call it trace work or lattice or interweave. Okay. Which one is which?
August on top.
August will be the top one, and the monster select the second is
Okay.
on the bottom.
Yes. That is the
Ballet career.
Yeah, so if you have an essay
Wisdom.
question on this artwork, what would you write about?
Throne of Wisdom.
Yeah, make sure you include the word Gothic. You can also talk about Saint-Denis and Abbot Suger. Does anybody remember anything about Saint-Denis and Abbot Suger? That was the first Gothic church.
Didn't one of them get a vision from God and he was like, I've got to put light in my church?
That's what exactly happened. So, the relic that's associated with chart, Nick, what is the relic that is associated with chart?
Oh.
It belongs to her. And Quinn.
We just talked about it.
I know we did.
It's your actions. It's your superhero cape.
Yeah, it is her superhero cape, but you probably want to put cloak or cape and leave the
I think it
superhero.
was tunic. It was tunic. It was Mary's
Where'd it
tunic.
go?
It could be a tunic. Yeah,
No, it wasn't
I've seen it reference several different things.
Her crown.
What architectural devices helped achieve the requirement for larger windows in the Gothic era? What did they
Pine
have?
buttresses. Pointed arches.
Pointed
Sorry.
Yeah, the
arches.
points.
Gothic style.
So pointed arches hold the weight better, distribute the weight better. So don't forget the pointed arches and then the flying buttresses. Nick, are you having fun making faces at Quinn?
No.
Then why are you doing it? I just want to know.
He's excited for Canada.
Okay. What is the importance of this statue?
It was the first like bronze statue
bronze
after a while.
So it was the first three-dimensional statue since classical times.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was made out of bronze. And then this is what it will be compared to. This is David by Michelangelo.
14.
Why was David, which is a biblical figure, why was David associated with Florence's political situation?
Because Florence had to like defend itself against the big
Defended
bad
itself
other
from the big
Italian
bad
states.
other people. Yeah. That'll get you top points for saying the big bad.
Big bad.
Big bad.
Big bad people.
All right.
School of
School of
Bath.
Bath.
So Grace,
Wow.
you were the one who remembered this one.
Sean Grace.
What type of perspective can we see in this? Linear perspective. Excellent. Okay, so we've got two examples here. One is Leon Battista Alberti, and you can see that we've got three different types of pilasters.
Oh,
In other words, that's a flat pillar.
Colosseum.
So that is like Tuscan or Doric. This is
Ionic.
Ionic,
Corinthian.
Corinthian. All right, this is the Il Gesù in Rome. It has a large central aisle, and it is the mother church for the Jesuits. Yes.
Is that the one without the
Yeah, it doesn't
Walk
have,
around?
they don't have the walk around.
what's it called?
I can't remember.
Ambulatory. Yeah.
Ambulatory.
No, I think that's
It
right.
also has a really beautiful Baroque fresco up at the top. So it looks like the roof is breaking away and then you can see the clouds. All right. These are two colonial paintings that you need to know about because both of them were painted in the New World. They have Spanish origins, but they were done in either Mexico or South America. So make sure you understand that. Spaniard and Indian produced a mestizo, or your mestizos. And, oh, it says Ron, oh, this is, and then the portrait of Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, Miguel Cabrera. What other art piece that we studied is she in? Think of Mexico.
Is she in the Sunday in the Park?
Sunday in the Park. Excellent. Okay, this is the graft of Medusa. And a lot of people compare it to this one because of the largely triangular shape. Miracles or Geracles, or what I'm saying, Delacroix were somewhat contemporaries. You should know this if it should pop up. And both of these represent what movement? Romantic. So romantic is anything that expresses strong emotion. These guys are being left behind on a raft. And then this is, fighting for France, liberty, leading the people, more of an allegory. Okay. Burgers of Calais in the bottom left. I'm trying to hurry up so we can do a little bit of Candyland.
Let's do it.
Okay, Olympia, Stonebreakers. You will have probably an essay on this one, so understand it. We talked about these three pieces of architecture.
Yep. Spiral jetty and then the migration.
Migration of the Negro. And then we've got Islamic art.
Style. There's a Kaaba. Yep.
Port of Guyamar, and then Jangahar.
Sanama. Great
Borobudur.
Stupa of Great and Borobudur are both Buddhist. Great Wave and the David Lacey with the dates on them.
It's actually, the Great Wave is actually a print on a wood block.
Well, the wood block was used to make the print.
Yes, that is what I.
Forbidden City.
For Biden.
Forbidden City.
The gates.
Oh god.
Swing and then that old man Hoth and
Stadia.
Stadia.
Third
Mm-hmm.
the graffiti dude.
graffiti man. The
Yep.
porcelain.
And the Hadid Center. XXI.
All right, we're done. We can play Candyland. Sorry, all the students cannot. Yeah.